They say a nation can be judged by how it treats its prisoners. If that's true, then the United States tells a story, both haunting and revealing. A story written in chains and bars, in silence and screams. A story that doesn't start with violence, but with an idea of control, of reform, of justice twisted over time into something darker. This is not just a history of stone walls and iron gates. This is the story of power, race, money, and morality. This is the story of American prison sand, how they grew from a noble vision to a sprawling empire of confinement. It began before America was even a country. In colonial times, punishment was public stocks in the square, whippings, executions. Prisons weren't places for long-term incarceration. They were holding cells before a sentence. The idea of locking someone away as punishment was rare. But the seeds were the reseeds that would grow as society changed. In the late 18th century, inspired by Enlightenment ideas and revolutions in thought, Americans began to imagine a new kind of justice, one that didn't just punish, but reformed. The Quakers in Pennsylvania led the charge. They believed solitude and reflection could heal the criminal soul. In 1790, they converted part of the Walnut Street Jail in Philadelphia into the first real prison. It was a quiet place, a place of isolation, a place where inmates were supposed to sit alone with their thoughts, read the Bible, and emerge better. That idea took root and evolved into two major systems. The first, in Pennsylvania, was solitary confinement, total isolation, no talking, no work, just you and your guilt. The second, in New York's Auburn system, was a bit different. Prisoners worked together silently during the day and were locked alone at night. Both systems aimed at reform but often produced madness instead. Then came the 19th century, and with it, growth. America was expanding, cities swelling, immigrants arriving, and with them, anxiety, poverty, crime, and a growing sense among the powerful that society needed to be controlled. Prisons became the answer. But reform was already giving way to something else. Punishment, discipline, labor. Across the country, massive penitentiaries were built. Eastern State Penitentiary in Pennsylvania became a symbol grant. Gothic, terrifying. It looked like a castle but held men in cells the size of closets. Auburn Prison in New York was another fortress of order and silence. Chain gangs began to appear in the South. Black men newly freed from slavery were rounded up on vague charges and sentenced to hard labor. It was slavery by another name. This is where the prison system truly began to intertwine with race. After the Civil War, the South needed a labor force. So laws were passed, black codes that criminalized almost anything a freed black man might do. Vagrancy, loitering, unpaid debts, and once arrested, they were leased out to plantations, railroads, mines. They were whipped, starved, worked to death. The convict lease system was brutal, and it laid the foundation for a racialized prison economy that still echoes today. In the early 20th century, reformers tried again. The progressive era brought new ideas: education in prisons, vocational training, parole systems. But behind the hopeful rhetoric was still the reality of control. Prisons remained harsh, overcrowded, and violent. And as America urbanized, the prison population grew. Then came Prohibition and the rise of organized crime. Suddenly, prisons filled with gangsters, bootleggers, and working-class men caught in the web of new moral laws. Famous prisons like Alcatraz were built to hold the worst of the worst. The idea of the super prison was born a place of isolation, of maximum control. By the 1950s, the U.S. had around 150,000 people in prison. It seemed manageable, but the 1960s and 70s changed everything. Civil rights, Vietnam, urban unrest, drugs, fear. Politicians responded with promises of law and order. Prisons swelled. And then came the war on drugs, a war not on substances but on people. In 1971, President Richard Nixon declared drug abuse public enemy number one. By the 1980s, mandatory minimum sentences, three strikes laws, and zero-tolerance policies flooded the system. Black and brown communities were hit hardest. Entire generations locked away in the name of safety, in the name of punishment, in the name of politics. By the 1990s, the prison population had exploded. From 500,000 in 1980 to over 2 million by the year 2000, America became the world's largest jailer. More people in prison than any other country, more than China, more than Russia, more than any dictatorship. Private companies saw an opportunity. For-profit prisons rose, promising cheaper operations, bigger returns. Wall Street invested. Lobbyists pushed for longer sentences. Crime became business. Prisons became warehouses for the poor, the addicted, the mentally ill. Rehabilitation was forgotten, and the line between justice and profit blurred beyond recognition. Inside, life was harsh. Overcrowding, understaffing, gangs, solitary confinement used as discipline, or, for months 7 years, violence was common. Suicide, despair, lives lost behind walls, invisible to the outside world. And yet, from within, resistance grew, prisoners wrote. They organized, they rioted. The most famous uprising came in 1971 Attica. Inmates at the New York prison took control, demanding basic human rights. After 4 days, the state sent in troops. 43 people were killed. But the message was clear. Prisons weren't just buildings, they were battlegrounds. In the 2000s and 2010s, awareness began to shift. Documentaries, books, and activists exposed the system. People began asking, why do we lock up so many? Why do we punish instead of heal? Why do we spend billions on cages and so little on communities? Movements for prison reform and abolition gained traction. The school-to-prison pipeline was challenged. Cash bail, which kept the poor in jail for months without trial, came under fire. States began experimenting drug courts, early releases, treatment over punishment. But progress was slow. The prison system had become a massive, self-sustaining machine, political, economic, cultural. And then, in 2020, came George Floyd. The protests that followed reignited the national conversation about police, about justice, about mass incarceration. Suddenly, the prison system was not invisible anymore. Today, over 2 million people are incarcerated in the U.S. Most are poor. Many are people of color. Many are serving long sentences for nonviolent crimes. The system is vast, complex, and it reflects the deepest contradictions in American society. We say we value freedom, yet we lead the world in incarceration. We say we believe in second chances, yet we lock people away and forget them. We say justice is blind, but numbers show it's anything but. And so we ask, what is prison for? Punishment? Protection? Profit? Redemption? The answer depends on who you are, where you live, the color of your skin, the money in your pocket. But one thing is certain, the American prison system did not happen by accident. It was built over centuries, brick by brick, law by law, choice by choice. It reflects not just our fears, but our values, not just our mistakes, but our intentions. And until we reckon with that, until we face the history we've built behind bars, we'll never be truly free. If this story opened your eyes, moved your heart, or made you think differently, don't forget to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that shape America. Your voice, your view, and your support keep these truths alive.